I'm Jim Ward. I was born in Galway Hospital and bred up just across the water here in Salthill behind me. The apartment block there that's blocking, the big apartment, ugly apartment block there blocking our view from our house in Salthill, which was sprung up in the last 5 years, incredibly, because the city council objected to it and so did the residents, and it was upheld. And suddenly they got away with building an apartment block. How does that happen? I don't know. That's Ireland of today. I grew up in a very idyllic childhood, really, there in Salthill. It's Beach Avenue I'm from, and when I was a kid, there was a beach at the very end of the avenue, a little tree-lined walkway down to the beach. And we used to swim there. The beach behind me, I learned to swim in with my mother many years ago. I remember there's photographs of me at 4 years old, old black and whites, me and my mother on that beach behind us there. More recently, I had a dog that I found abandoned one Christmas. I had her for 11 years. I used to walk that beach with her as well more recently. But certainly where I grew up was an idyllic childhood back in those days. Then where the aquarium and that park, Clodtoft Park behind us is, then they filled that land in and they reclaimed the land sometime in the 80s. Made some developments there, but it was an idyllic childhood growing up there. One sister, my dad worked in Texaco Oil Company. His depot was down the docks. I had plenty of great stories growing up also in Paddy Brennan's famous pub in the docks, where he drank with the other workers from the dock area, and from stories of going out to see the last transatlantic cruiser or liner in the bay, on the road, as we call it, a liner on the road in the sea there. The last transatlantic liner from the States came in when I was about 6. We were all smuggled on board Mickey Carrick's pilot boat. He was the pilot skipper. We went out to see the last liner. Mickey forgot to raise the flag, and we had to do a U-turn around with the siren going. So we eventually caught up with the liner. The rope ladder was thrown down. The pilot went up and he guided the boat in. Galway is a shallow port, so the liners and the cruisers anchor in the bay and they're shuttled in. So that's what it was like back then. I think the transatlantic liners used to stop in Galway on their way to Europe. That was the last one from the States when I was about 6. Also, there's photographs of me with Mickey Carrick on the wheel or the helm of the pilot boat as well. So it was a kind of an idyllic childhood growing up. Fortunately, things happened, took a turn. My mum died when I was 7 then. She got cancer. She died when I was 7. And I was reared by my aunt. My aunt was Maureen, she was a saint, really. She put up with me later on. She put up with a lot of stuff. My dad kind of turned to drink a lot when my mum died. He drank heavily, and she put up with that. She reared me and my sister while holding on a job kind of in the building office of McNally's Construction in Galway. She would get time off to come home to make us lunch from school, go back to work again, come back at 6 o'clock, and we would have the whole place in a mess and all that. She was really a saint, that woman, really a saint. Some of the wild things we did as kids would be that, when that area there was just under reclamation, we said they built the road, but the tide still came in, so we used to sail rafts in the inlet there. We also sailed rafts out to the sea. One very hot summer, we sailed a raft out. It was a scorcher heat wave. We sailed a raft out the Mutton Island Lighthouse. We all got sunburned. Another time when mackerel season was in, the mackerel come in Galway every August, and you can literally put your hand on and pick them out of the water. We sailed a raft out to go mackerel fishing, me and a couple of other guys that I hung around with. We capsized and we had to push the raft in our clothes back to shore. Interesting stuff like that. But it was nothing for me at the age of 10 or 9, 10, 11 to have a stone fight with neighbouring kids and come home with my head pumping blood from a stone fight. And if my sister found that for her kids today, she'd have the social services call, I'd believe, But that was the way it was. It was a family move there. Their dad was an executive in some American company. They were called Schindler from the United States. Apparently the father had been in the Waffen SS or something like that. But he was an American businessman. He came there and these were real crew-cut, blonde, blue-eyed kind of American kids. We played with them. At the start we used to play football with them and on that. Then something began between us. So our gang and their gang split, and there'd be stone fights and catapult fights and all that beyond us there. Sort of a very kind of a crazy childhood. That was only some of the things. We got older, then other wild stuff happened in Salthill. Quite a few of my friends actually are dead at the moment. And they weren't old men when they passed away. You're talking about drink-related stuff or heart attack or drug stuff, suicide, stuff like that. It was really kind of, you never know when it's going to happen, but it's sad. And a lot of my friends have passed away. However, the 2 lads I hung around with were older than me. The main guys, we were on the raft and all that. We did a lot of other crazy stuff. They're still alive, Wales the Dia, and they're still friendly with me. And there was a pecking order in Salthill growing up. I was hung around with these older guys. There was older guys younger than us, so we were pecking order. We'd send them to the shop to get our bag of potatoes and a club milk and a can of Fanta. And that was my diet when I was sending some guys to the shop to do some stuff for for me. That was the sort of crack it was. Plenty of shops in Salthill, tourist shops and all that. We divided into the seasons. The winter term we were going to school, and we had winter sort of stuff, playing football with the school and all that. And summertime we had our own crazy stuff in Salthill. The arcades were there. And I remember when I got my first job was with Malloy's Wholesale Drapery, where Charlie Byrne's bookstore is now. Really good job. Jerry was the best. I think it's safe to say Jerry Malloy was the best employer I had ever since then. I was getting £25 a week at the time when the workers in the digital corporation were getting £35 a week. And I wasn't drinking. I was only a young guy at school, 14, 15, going to school. And I would go up to O'Gorman's bookstore, where Easton's is now, and buy a book on Friday when I got my wage. Then I would go up to the arcades in Salthill, plant my money on the machine for the Space Invaders or Defender or those games, those video games were at the time. That was how I spent my money there, with the £25 a week. And I found ways of spending it, and I wasn't drinking in those days. School, I remember starting school in Scullegia in Salthill, St. Eata's in Salthill. I was about 4 years old, and I cried the whole day away, and I fell asleep, and I went back, and my mother was waiting outside the school for me. Scullegia went by, and then we went to St. Enda's National School, where it was kind of a rough time there because, not for me, because the teachers we had were very good there. Mr. Tedder, Mr. Flatley, really good teachers there. Into history, they taught a lot of history. I'm into history, and because of that, history, religion, and long division sums or something like that was the order, the subject order. But Mr. Flatley inculcated a love of history for us. We're all great historians in that class. There was a head teacher there called Mr. Muldoon. He was nicknamed Baldy Muldoon. He could be rough. A lot of guys feared Baldy Muldoon. Even to this day, there was kind of a semi-reunion a couple of years ago, 2018. We all met in a bar in Salthill for a quiz. Just coincidentally, a lot of guys from the school were there. And the topic of conversation the whole night was Baldy Muldoon, Mr. Muldoon. I don't want to be pejorative, but he could be a very tough, demanding, hard guy to be in the headmaster. I didn't have him, thankfully.
Was there corporal, or was that brief?
There was the end of corporal punishment. It was the end of corporal punishment, in those days,
So you missed it.
The secondary school was the Jesuits in Galway, Coláiste Ignáis, St. Ignatius, and that got me my love of the Irish language. I speak Irish fluently. I'm not a native speaker, I'm a fluent speaker. I used to love the literature study. When I went doing the equivalent of the junior cert at the time, I was 16 or 15 or 16. I had no Irish basically from primary school. There was a deficit in the school system at the time. So I wanted to learn Irish, and I taught myself to speak Irish through just watching the TV programs and listening to the radio and reading the books and dictionary out and all that. A very studious guy at school. I liked the Jazz. It was a good school for learning. It wasn't a grind school like the Bish where you're educated for the exams. The Jazz, they say they educate you for life, and they do that. So it was a good education, all-round education, and if you apply yourself to it. And there's the difference in character. For example, I'll give you an example of the way the Jesuits think. If you said something in a religion class in the Jazz, something like to the extent of, I'll say in a Christian Brothers school, you say like, well, I think abortion should be legal. You'd get the glantor thrown at your head, or you'd get whacked your head open. If you said that in the Jesuit school, they'd say, oh, really, Mr. Ward? And you'd probe a debate in the class. Do you really think that this should have, that the baby gets the death penalty? Or something that probe your mind, make you think something like that. Do you get me? They'd encourage debate. There was one girl in the school, there was a rugby school as well. There was one girl in the school who wanted to play rugby at one stage. And there was nothing in the room, because it was a co-educational school. There was nothing wrong with a girl playing rugby, but there was guys who objected to her and all that. And there was big debates. We used to stop the maths class and the science class. We used to nudge, let's get them, wind up the teacher on this. So there'd be whole debates in the whole class about this whole topic. We wouldn't have to do our subjects for that day. It was a really, really excellent place to go to school, I think, And I did fairly well. I did fairly well in my exams in the Jazz. I'm happy with that.
Fantastic. And so where did you go from school?
From school, I went to university in Galway, and I put down engineering because I liked maths. I was interested in maths, and I was advised to do engineering, and I did honours maths for 2 years in university. But that's that's the extent. Like, I can safely say I went to, no disrespect to the engineering lecturers, but I went to did engineering, got an engineering degree without opening an engineering book nearly, except for exam time. Whereas I like the maths stuff. I mean, I can still prove the square root of 2 is irrational, and I like the maths and the physics part of it. And maybe I should have done a degree in that. But had I gone down that route, then you could say, why didn't you do a degree in history, which you like, or Irish, which you like? Because, and someone once said to me, Jim, if you did Celtic studies and history, the only job you could be available for you would be a professor of Celtic studies, because nothing else was going. So really, I treated the university as a vocational school. I did engineering to get a job, basically. And I did industrial engineering because industrial was a good subject. You did things like management science, which isn't the business management. It's management science, how you solve problems, how you think, philosophy of management, that sort of stuff. And I did, there was some other interesting subjects along the way, but I did industrial because there was a recession in the civil engineering business, so that was out of the question, and I didn't want to emigrate, so I did industrial to get into industry. And I thought, like a lot of guys at the time, thought we'd end up in the deck company. Digital Equipment Corporation was in Galway, employed 5,000 people. I thought I'd end up with the company car and like a lot of the engineers didn't go on to the company financially doing a master's degree. I thought all that at the time. In the end, it didn't. I was a year unemployed before I got my first job. I got a job as a production manager in a company. That didn't go great, and then I left and I got a job in Ericsson. I went to the Ericsson multinational in Athlone, which is a great company for travelling and doing business with. And they trained me as a software engineer, as a quality systems auditor. I had a great time in Ericsson, and I met some nice people, great people there. There's legendary stories of me in Athlone and the carry-on we would get up to during the Thursday night and the last night before we went home for the weekend. And it was all people in Ericsson came from all over the different parts of the country because we're all grads. A lot of them were post-grads, came there in all different disciplines, came to work as software engineers in Ericsson. And it was a really good spot for travel, as I say. I went to Stockholm with the company, opportunity to go to Paris, and stuff like that. More stories there, but like there's legendary stories, I think, there was at the time, me in Ericsson and in Athlone, and I'm not going to go there now. Well, I was a professional cartoonist with Unpublic, and there's a new style in Unpublic now. So now it's now every 3 months that it comes out instead of the old paper every week when you'd be selling it under counters and going to pubs selling the old paper. But as the paper as it was called euphemistically, and it's now a glossy quarterly. They stopped running cartoons, but I got featured in Village magazine online, in Ropes literary journal, and also in Culture Matters anthology as well for working class writers. Cartoonism. I got into cartoons when I was in primary school. I used to get the Dandy, the Beano, or the Victor, those comics that were out at the time. I was mad into World War II and to cartooning and to draw. I used to replicate the pictures I saw in the cartoons and all that. And I was good at it. I was good at art. I'm a good artist. Even if I don't, I say so myself. Some of my work is carrying in Charlie Burns' bookstore. I've got stuff in Davy Byrne. The sites associated with James Joyce in Dublin, my cartoons are there of Joycean related matters. Davy Burns, Sweeney's Chemist, and the Joyce Centre in Dublin. They sell my sketches. Also, Charlie Burns has my originals as well. I got into cartoons that way. A few years ago, my aunt who reared me, as I said, that woman was a saint, and before she passed away, I was looking after her for a bit. My sister was around the world gallivanting and all that, and she met a partner and had kids and all that. I was looking after my aunt, and of course she looked after me too when I would have hate the sauce and all that. So I had to reinvent myself then a couple of years ago. I did an MBA, by the way, after I finished college. A few years later I finished college, I did an MBA, Master's in Business Administration, and I found myself at a loose end. So I did 2 courses, one in digital marketing, one in tour guiding, and I got distinctions in both, and I work in both those areas now, seasonal in tourism and the digital marketing all year round. I was actually teaching digital marketing with the Galway Common Training and Education Board just last year. The first year that I quit the booze, I was heavy on the booze. I think part of it might have been self-medication in some ways, but I was heavy on the drink for a while. And I gave it up 14 years ago, and the first year I gave it up, I wrote 2 plays. I wrote one called Just Guff, and I wrote another one called 3 Quarks, and they were bottom drawered. Well, I met a girl called Jenny Bassett, and she was a dramaturg and a drama director, and I gave her the plays, and she looked at them and she said, look, we can work with these. So she worked with Just Guff, and we edited the script, we made it more tightened it up, and it won an award in Galway Fringe Festival in 2017. It went on to travel down to the Kilkee Playwright Festival, to the Town Hall Theatre in Galway, and to Liberty Hall in Dublin. Good play, I think. Even if I say it should be shown again, I think it's such a good play. The 3 Quarks one is a Joycean related play. 3 Quarks from Ulster Mark is a line from Finnegan's Wake. I wrote a play called 3 Quarks, and that was produced by the James Joyce Centre in Dublin in 2021. It's on YouTube. I think that should be seen more widely as well. I was trying to get into the Morgan in New York, and they were interested in the script there a couple of years ago. I'll work on that again. I have another play written called Goodbye Lost Country, and that'll be produced hopefully next 2025, because 2 theatres want to put that on. I won't mention any names at the moment. The 2 theatres want to put that on, but I have to raise funds to get that going. They will match penny for penny, cent for cent what I put into that, but I have to raise the money to get that going. I also, I got into writing as well. Mr. Flatley at primary school encouraged us to write, said I was a good writer. I loved the English literature course in secondary school. The year I finished my Leaving Cert, I read the book To Kill a Mockingbird, and I only read it once, that novel once, and I said, that's such a good book, I want to write like that, or some story like that. So I have a novel coming out now next year as well, called No Ordinary Bread, that I wrote in the last couple of years. I have another novel about Salthill, one about a seaside town called Rednecks in Suburbia, but that has yet to see the light of day. And I have a short story called, I have a number of short stories published in Irish and English, and poetry in Irish and English. I should have a poetry collection next year as well. But also, there was a short story I wrote called Smoke, published in 2020, that a filmmaker is now making into a short of a 15-20 minute short, hopefully for production for the Galway Film Festival. We'll wait and see.
How has Salthill, Galway Salthill changed since you were a young fella?
Salthill seems to have evolved as I have evolved, because when I was a kid, it was a really idyllic place to grow up in, with the beach at the end of the roadway, the stone fights, the rafts and all that. Then as I grew up and went to the university, I didn't go away to university. My university was in my hometown, so I lived at home. So there was about 14 nightclubs in the whole strip of Salthill when I was growing up. And I went to most of them and drank in most of them. So that was that fed my appetite at the time when I was younger in that era. And now even before the nightclubs, the drinking scene, when I got my first job when I was in school, there was the arcades, and we could all play the slot. We could all twist the slot machine so it would come around at the 3 bars, so we could get some money. We had that trick in Salthill, and the Space Invaders and the Defender and all these games, that was there as well. So it evolved as I evolved down the years. Now it's kind of become a very quiet, sedate, foodie type of a place, which suits me. Like, I don't live there anymore. I moved out about 4 or 5 years ago. But it's still, the vibe there suits me now as well.
When would you have been at your truly happiest?
That's difficult to say. Difficult question to say. When I've been truly, are we ever? There's the line from the Beckett play Endgame, where one character says, "Do you believe in the life to come?" The other character says, "Mine was always that." We always look forward to something better along the way. Is there ever any kind of satisfaction or happiness along the way? Maybe when I was younger, I was kind of happy. I had that idyllic childhood I had. The rest, times were tough for me as well. A lot of the way, it wasn't all bed of roses. There was tough times as well. I will admit that, And I took to alcohol, I think, for self-medication in some ways, and a lot of shit going on. But, I think we'll wait and see.
Do you have any regrets?
Do I have any regrets? Yeah, one thing I do regret is that I was good goalkeeper in soccer. At the time when I was growing up, Pat Comer had the goalkeeping and Gaelic slot taken. I wasn't a good Gaelic goal. Well, I was fairly handy for the local parish teams and all that. But I played for Salthill Athletic in goals, and then Salthill Athletic merged with Devon Celtic to become Salthill Devon, the great club Salthill Devon. I regret that I didn't continue playing soccer a bit more. I think that I was a kind of a one-track pony in terms that if I was studying for exams, I couldn't concentrate on sport. Even going to the Jays from playing rugby, I couldn't think of the rugby. When I was on the rugby field, I was thinking of studying. When I was studying, I was thinking of playing. I was a one-track pony, and so I couldn't multitask. So I regret that I didn't play more soccer, because it's my favourite sport, really. Soccer is an international sport. And there's a good tradition of soccer in my family as well. My uncle Jim played soccer for Galway, and my in-laws, Pepper Griffin and all those, they played, and his brother played soccer for Galway. Soccer would be in the family, and I regret that I didn't play more soccer. Yeah, I was a good keeper. I was a good goalkeeper.
If you could go back in time and give a young Jim Ward one piece of advice, what would that be?
If I was to go back in time and give a young Jim Ward one piece of advice, what would that be? Well, it would be to do what you want to do in university because you're interested in, not because it'll get you a job at the end of the day, because that can backfire. Do what you want. Study what you want to do. What you want to do in life. Don't do what you might plan for strategic purposes that might backfire.